Have you noticed how every year feels just a little harder? Harder to lose weight, harder to stay consistent, harder to bounce back. It's not because you're broken, it's because your plan hasn't evolved. Your plan is broken. And if I'm honest, restarting every few months isn't helping. I know I get it. Restarting feels productive. It feels like we're in control, but it's not. We tell ourselves things like, I'll get serious after vacation because Aruba has some of the best food. This time I'll be strict. No cheating, I promise. Get it right. Let me just reset on Monday. If I could just make it through the weekend, I'll start again on Monday. Restarting gives you a dopamine hit. It truly does feel like you're in control of your destiny. But truthfully, restarting resets your momentum every single time. You'll start a new 6-week program. You program hop, right? You think, oh, if I just start, the last program didn't work, let me just start this new program. It sounds exciting. It sounds like it'll actually get me results. You cut calories super hardcore. If I'll just dial back on my calories, I'll lose the weight, I'll get in shape, I'll have more energy. Overtraining. I need to go and hit the gym really hard. So I do 2 hours of cardio because I ate tons of ice cream and cakes and cookies over the weekend. So you think you can outtrain bad nutrition. But here's the hard truth. The hard truth. I'm going to have to give it to you. Every crash diet costs us muscle, it costs us confidence, it costs us a routine that we can rely on, that we know is moving the needle. And that's where the real problem begins. So you might be thinking, what actually makes this feel so much harder every year? What's happening? Well, I want to touch on three core areas I believe why each year gets harder for us over 40. One of the things that I really truly believe cost us a lot of grief is our muscle, right? After 40, muscle is your metabolic currency. It's gold. It is gold. If you're not progressing in load, meaning strength training in some capacity, you're losing it. You're declining. In fact, if you're over 40 to 50 years old, you can lose up to 2% of muscle each year. And it's even more, up to 15% over 50. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. This has been scientifically proven. Cardio won't replace strength, and we can get caught up in the cardio gerbil wheel all day long. We think if we do 2 hours of cardio, somehow we've just improved our whole physique, our whole fitness level, our whole body has changed. And yeah, cardio is good for us, right? I'm not dismissing that. It's great for the heart, it's great for the lungs, but it does not support strength progression. In fact, it can work against your strength progression if you do too much of it. So it needs to be done in moderation. And you certainly cannot diet your way into resilience as it relates to muscle resilience. And your muscle isn't the only thing that's shifting. We've got our recovery and hormones to consider as it relates to things getting harder because those things change, right? Stress tolerance shrinks. Our sleep is harder. It's harder to sleep if we're not paying attention and not really intentionally making sure our sleep is on point. And I cannot emphasize how important sleep is when we're over 40 because it's not just about getting a good night's rest. Definitely, we want that. Yes, we need really good rest, right? But sleep also helps our body to repair and restore from all of the wear and tear life throws at us mentally and physically. We're constantly making decisions, we're constantly in thought, we're constantly moving here and there throughout the day, especially as parents. So, sleep is critical for so many reasons. And also, as it relates to recovery and hormones, inflammation loves to hang around and stay in places that it needs to just leave, right? We just wish the inflammation would leave our knees and elbows and our back, all these, critical areas for our mobility and movement. But the bottom line is your body isn't fragile, it's responsive. So, what's happening outside of our bodies is truly being impacted within. So, it demands better input. So, what you put into it as it relates to sleep, as it relates to the nutrition, as it relates to our fitness, specifically strength training really will dial in the hormonal shifts and changes that we are seeing, and it will allow our bodies to recover in a totally different way. And last area is life. Let's life is always lifing, right? We've got career pressure, especially if we're over 40, our career positioning is a little different than when we were in our 20s and 30s. So our career pressure may be a little more heightened, right? We're parents. Parenting is not easy, right? Decision fatigue, from the time we wake up in the morning until we go to bed at night, we have a gazillion decisions to make. And then we have financial responsibility. We've got to take care of everything and everyone. So these things become either barriers or they become, we have to create that system or the structure around these areas so that they don't become barriers and keep us from being able to move through a consistent lifestyle structure, right? So that means our structure needs to be stronger, right? And not your motivation. We can't rely on motivation. We touched on that in our last episode. We have to rely on structure. And personally, I had to learn that the hard way. I personally have gone through just many iterations of my fitness life and fitness journey over the years. I think it hit the hardest for me in my 40s, a lot deeper. As being an athlete, someone who's always been very active since my late teens, well into my 40s and 50s, I've been able to um, go through all these different changes. I've experienced all these changes that I coach my clients about and that I am now speaking through this podcast. I've tried to outtrain menopause weight gain. I've gone down the road where I thought, even as an athlete, maybe if I just eat less and train harder, my body will change. I'll feel better. I'll feel less tired. I'll feel XYZ. Um, Feeling disciplined, but not progressing. There's that opposite effect, right? Where I'm super disciplined, but I'm not progressing because something is still unaligned. Something's misaligned. And just frustrated over and over and over, feeling like, okay, well, what's the point? So, all the mental frustration and kind of wanting to quit or just give up, I felt that as well. Like, what's the point, right? Because I'm trying all these things. So, like you, I have restarted as well, if I'm being honest. And I know it wasn't because I was lazy, but again, it's because I've been misaligned. I was misaligned from the start. And I had to first accept I'm no longer in the 25-year-old body anymore. I'm no longer 25. So I can't think or even train or have a lifestyle of my younger self. And I had to start to realign my thinking, just as I'm trying to help you realign your thinking if that's where you are. And one of the things that I've had to do personally is train smarter, not longer, eat more protein and the right types of proteins at the right times of day. Truly, one of the biggest things that I had to really figure out and align with my target goals was my sleep. Sleep is so critical. And I think a lot of times we take it for granted that as long as I can get up tomorrow and chug down some coffee or some tea, I'll be okay. But we don't realize all the things that happen throughout the night in our sleep that must happen for us to be effective in our waking hours, our hormones, our cognitive capacity, our energy levels, our metabolism, our ability to regenerate new tissue and cells and clean up things, our digestive tract, our gut health. All these things are happening while we're asleep. So I've taken that for granted for many, many, many years, just really moving by on very little sleep. So that is important. Don't want to go down that rabbit hole in this episode, but we are going to definitely in future episodes talk more about sleep. Tracking your progress. Now, this is a biggie because a lot of times people don't want to track progression because they feel it's daunting and may be overwhelming. And so, I never say to a client or, even myself that I need to track forever, right? I need to track so that I have baselines so I can compare month to month. Let's just say 3 months. What am I doing? What am I eating? How much training am I getting? Am I getting sleep every night? On Tuesday nights, I get very little sleep because I have, Wednesday morning meetings at work, and so I have anxiety, and it keeps me up at night. So I understand what patterns are happening in my life to make sure I am removing those patterns or addressing those patterns so that I can get it right. Yeah. I had to stop trying to shrink myself through some of these other things that I was doing and start trying to strengthen myself. And that's changed everything. So let me ask you something real. I just want you to pause for a moment and let me ask you something real. How do you want to feel at 60? Not look, but feel. Do you want to lift your suitcase into an overhead bin without thinking twice? Do you want to go on a hike without your knees barking at you? Play with your grandkids without needing to sit down and take a 5-minute breather? How about walk upstairs without planning your recovery? Because that future doesn't happen by accident. No, it does not. We have to make a conscious choice that that's our future by creating a lifestyle that supports that. It has to align. Everything we do today will predict and or support our future selves, our future bodies, our future lifestyles, so that it doesn't keep getting harder. It gets easier, or at least at the very least it's maintenance. It's sustainable, right? We're able to sustain who we are now in our physical selves, who we're gonna become in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Because after 40, we have these seasons. We go through seasons. And what I mean by that is sometimes you're building strength, sometimes you're maintaining, like I just said. Sometimes you're rebuilding after stress, travel, or injury. But here's the key: you're never fully in restart mode. Yeah, we don't want restart mode. We want either that we're building consistently, we're maintaining what we've built, or if we have to rebuild because of something, some life altering event that is, out of our control, that's fine. But we're not going in chunks of time where we start for a week, 2 weeks, and then we stop. And then we go 2 months down the road, nothing, and then we start again. That's a restart cycle. That is a restart cycle. But the point of what I'm trying to share with you is it gets harder over time of us doing that stop and go mode, because so much is happening and changing within our bodies and within our lives that makes it harder every time we do that. And the difference is you don't want to quit and come back. You want to adjust and continue. So if it's about tweaking a little bit, few days, let's say for instance, you had a real off week, we tweak next week. We know what not to do. We know, what times to avoid XYZ, what times to get into bed. If I need to take a melatonin to help me sleep tonight versus last week because I had a stressful week, then I adjust. I take the melatonin. I drink the chamomile tea. I, stretch before I go to sleep. There's something that I do to help me adjust the situation so that I maintain that consistency and not find myself restarting. Because that's maturity training. That's not reactive training of our lifestyle, the structure, the training, meaning, you know, I've trained myself to stick to these routines and these habits that will get me to the next level, that moves the needle, that keeps me from having to restart. That is maturity. It's thoughtfulness. It's caring about ourselves enough. And that's what we want to continue to grow. We put it like this. If you run a business or household, you already understand this. You don't shut down the company every time there's a hard week, right? We're not shutting down the company. We would be devastated. We would lose money. We would lose employees. Employees would be out of work if we have employees. You don't shut the company down because there's an off week. You adjust your strategy and you keep operating. That's what you would do. That's the same with your body. Structure reduces decision fatigue. In other words, when your standards are clear, when you have a clear and intentional approach to how you're going to run your body and run your life, you don't wake up asking, should I work out today? Should I eat my protein today? Ooh, am I going to drink enough water today? You already know what season you're in. You already know what you're going to do because it is the structure and the standard that you've set for yourself. So you don't veer from that, right? And how do we lock in on our season we're in? We lock in by making sure we do some type of strength training and movement 2 to 4 times a week. We make sure in doing that training, we are progressing in some fashion, whether it's lifting heavier, more reps, we have more endurance within the session, and we stop chasing exhaustion and we train smartly. Meaning we stop, saying, oh my gosh, I'm sweating buckets every time I go to the gym. I'm just sweating. Look at my clothes, they're so soaking wet. That doesn't mean you've done anything that turned the corner or that you've changed your body. Maybe you're just a sweaty person, but that you train smartly because you have a structured program. You know exactly what you're hitting. You have a plan when you walk in the gym or in your home gym. You have a plan. You know how you're going to execute it. You know how long it's going to take, and you follow the plan and get it done. That is training smartly. Protein, we make sure because protein is king and it is a critical component to our muscular health and to our brain health. We make sure we're getting enough protein, especially if you're trying to sculpt your body or to weight loss, to lose weight, right? We make sure we have enough protein. Ideally, your body weight target, if you are trying to lose weight, you want to eat the amount of protein per day that you're trying to target your weight at. And if you're eating out, you look at the protein first. We're not going into a restaurant because I'm not going to say don't go out and not eat, right? But what I will suggest is that you are eating with intention, even when you go out. This isn't a time for you to say, woo, time to party. I get to go have whatever I want. I get to treat myself, right? That's another justification. That's another barrier. And what you do is you get to the restaurant, you look at protein first, and then everything around that protein, vegetables, carbs, little, finger food they bring out, like chips and dip, you then smartly make choices that would either modify some of these things or you trade off. If I'm going to eat the chips and salsa, then I won't eat a bed of red rice or, um, a big thing of nachos as my main entree because I've already had chips and salsa. So you find ways to modify as it relates to eating out. Another episode, Just food for thought. Again, sleep, we've already touched on that. I won't go down that road again, but sleep is definitely, something you need to protect and be intentional about. It's like your meeting. Like, let that be kind of the mindset around sleep. Sleep is your meeting of your body and mind at night while you're asleep. Let that be protected and nurtured. Walking, another important way of locking in your season is to walk. Very easy to do if you're able to do that. You walk. Why? Because it is a part of um, a part of getting us out of the sitting mode. We, you know, globally and especially in Western culture, we sit a lot, right? We sit because most of us have desk jobs. So it's important that you create a schedule throughout your day to get up and move. Don't let your body just sit in that position all day because our hips suffer, our glutes suffer, our backs, lower backs suffer, and there's very little circulation happening. We can go on and on and on why sitting is not the healthiest thing for long periods of time. You already know this, but I'm just re-emphasizing today. You don't need more intensity about anything. We need, again, repeatable standards and structure around our lifestyle so that it doesn't continue to get harder. It doesn't have to be a restart cycle all the time, every year, all the time. We don't want that. And if we peel back the layers of the onion, there are so many simple fixes to that. And it really just starts with having a very strong, repeatable, measurable, sustainable plan. And I know you can do it. It just really takes you making a choice that you're tired and you're sick of starting over. You're just sick of it. So if this resonated with you, don't wait for another Monday restart moment because that cycle is costing you more than you think. It really is. This month, inside my new Lunch and Learn series, I'm walking through a full framework I use with my clients, the exact structure that replaces the restart cycle. It's not hype, it's just a matter of fact. It's a practical, structured approach that is built specifically for adults 40 and over who are juggling real life. So, if you're tired of guessing and ready to build something that actually holds, join us. Details will be in the show notes. This is Sick of Starting Over. Stop restarting, start building. I'll see you next week. Bye.